When are the important days to check your hormones and what should you pay attention to, especially if all your hormone levels are in the range, but FSH is on the upper limit? Hormone testing is most effective when done on specific days on your menstrual cycle because your hormone levels fluctuate naturally. So knowing when you have to test can you give you the bigger and the better picture. So the first test is done usually on cycle day 3 because it's the ideal time to test FSH, LH and Estradiol. These hormones give you insights into your ovarian reserve and how well your body is preparing for ovulation. If the FSH level is on the upper limit, it could mean that your ovaries are working a little bit harder. So that does not mean you can't conceive, but we have to have a look at the bigger picture, like your age and other symptoms and your other hormones. Estradiol levels. Estradiol is a form of estrogen. It should be low at that time, but not too low. So as overly suppressed estrogen can mask elevated FSH levels. So a higher level of estradiol on day 3 could indicate poor ovarian reserve or hormonal imbalances. And that's why normally then a doctor should test as well mid-cycle around ovulation, so day 12 to day 14 approximately. We all ovulate on different days and it can be even a little bit later. So around ovulation, they should check again because there you should have a peak estradiol level when it's leading up to ovulation. And that means so what I mean with peak, it should rise significantly in the follicular phase. This is what estrogen does. It starts here below and then rises up and peaking before ovulation. And this peak is critical for endometrial thickening and triggering this LH surge that leads to ovulation. So this is something else you should be testing. And the third test should be done around day 21, or let's say, better to say, is 7 days post-ovulation. And in an ideal world, this is day 21, but most of you are not in an ideal world, so you need to know when you're ovulating and if you're ovulating, and then from then onwards, 7 days past that, you test. Typically, we test especially their progesterone to confirm as well if ovulation occurred. And if your cycles are irregular, you might need to track ovulation with basal body temperature or ovulation predictor kits to time this correctly. That's something you will learn in the Fertility Circle. So stay patient there because I have a full section on that, how you can measure if you've ovulated. And the basal body temperature measure, the basal body temperature method is absolutely fantastic for that. So anyway, now let's go back to the test. So although we're primarily focusing on progesterone testing, estradiol can also be measured there to assess the luteal phase hormone balance. Estradiol supports the uterine lining in the luteal phase, and low levels, extremely low levels, might indicate an issue with ovulation or insufficient luteal phase support. Because what estrogen does, again, when you start menstruating, it's at the bottom, then it peaks before ovulation, it goes down, but it makes another slight curve. So it should go up a little bit more. So if it doesn't do that, again, it's another indication that we may struggle with ovulation, or it's just an insufficient luteal phase. So that's why those 3 tests are usually essential to just get a full picture of your hormone levels. If your doctor just tests on day 3 or just on day 21, you just can't get that full picture. So it's gonna be important to do this. But outside of these days, there are other hormones that can be tested at any point in your cycle and should be tested as well when you're struggling with infertility. And what gets me, that often thyroid hormones are not tested. And if they're tested, they stop at TSH. You should get a full thyroid panel, and you can do this throughout your whole cycle. It doesn't matter. But thyroid hormones play a critical role in fertility, so they should be also definitely checked alongside with your reproductive hormones. Another test you can do whenever you want is AMH testing, anti-Mullerian hormone. So it's another marker of your ovarian reserve, and that isn't tied to specific cycle days. And you can also measure prolactin, because elevated levels can interfere with ovulation. So it's important to check if you're experiencing irregular cycles. So prolactin is another thing you can do whenever. Another thing I would like to mention here is hormones being within the range is a great start, but nuances matter. And your doctor's range might be fairly wide. And just right now, a member sent me her lab test results and the doctor said her thyroid is healthy and nothing is wrong. Well, I read that a little bit different, and based on her symptoms and the lab test results and one marker being not within the range, or for me not within the range, for me it definitely indicated a subclinical hypothyroidism. And the problem is with that if you're going then to a normal doctor, they will not help you with that because you are within the range. You also should see someone who can read your lab test results and has a little bit of a closer look and actually puts one-on-one together. So if you are struggling now with FSH being on the upper limit, it could be a sign of diminished ovarian reserve, especially if it's paired with a lower AMH. And I don't know that because the person who asked the question, I don't know the AMH levels. But what's important to know here is as well that it doesn't mean you can't conceive. It just means that we got to pay a little bit more attention to egg quality. So that means nutrition and lifestyle. And this is what we're going to do now in the Fertility Circle in the 12-week program. We are addressing exactly that. So you will learn how to eat for your fertility. And we will address your hormone levels step by step. And what I would like you to do is pay attention to the symptoms you have at the moment. Yeah, your cycles, maybe spotting, check if you're ovulating or not. And your body will give you clues about what may be not quite right now, and write those symptoms down. And within 4 weeks, check in with you and see, are these symptoms still there? Because your body will not just give you clues, your body will also start healing and will take away little symptoms. You may feel more energetic, maybe a rash you haven't gotten rid of in years is finally disappearing. You may be able to breathe better. Little things will improve. And it's always helpful to write it down, because if you don't write it down, you may not notice. So pay attention to your symptoms. And also maybe to the person who asked the question, consider retesting FSH and Estradiol over multiple cycles to see a pattern. Because now they measured FSH in one cycle, it doesn't give you a full picture. So consider retesting. And just remember that balancing your hormones is essential to nourish your body. It's also important that you're managing stress and support your overall health to create a fertile environment. And this is why you're in here and you're at the right place, because this is what we're going to do exactly over the next 12 weeks. We will nourish and flood your body with nutrients it needs to create the most beautiful environment for your unborn baby. And no medication can give you that. Medications, don't get me wrong, have a place and are important in certain cases. But they're usually a band-aid, because they usually do not address underlying root causes. And I can't stress enough how important it is to nourish your body with essential nutrients. Everything stands and falls with that. So I hope that helped a little bit, how to test your hormones, what to pay attention to. And if you have any follow-up questions, drop them in the Facebook group, in the Fertility Circle, and I'll cover them within the next Q&A. And don't forget, be kind to yourself, you've got this.